Martha Reed is the author of the award-winning John and Sarah Jared Nantucket Mysteries series. Book one, The Choking Game, which I loved, was a 2015 Killer Nashville Silver Falcon nominee for Best Traditional Mystery. The Nature of the Grave, Book two, won an independent publisher, that's an IPPY, honorable mention for Mid-Atlantic Best Regional Fiction. Book three, No Rest for the Wicked, was a 2017 IPPY Best Traditional Mystery nominee. Her short stories have appeared in Pearl, Spine Tingler, Mysterical E, and in Lucky Charms, 12 Crime Tales, an anthology produced by our chapter, by the Pittsburgh chapter of Sisters in Crime.
Thank you, Susan. What I'd like to read tonight is from my latest book that came out in February. This is book 3 in the Nantucket series, No Rest for the Wicked. It is set on Nantucket, and it chronicles the adventures of my police detective, John Jared. The police cruiser bounced at the end of the asphalt lane. John began to follow an increasingly sodden and rutted track back to the older part of the dump, back to the cells. Before Nantucket's population had mushroomed, public trash had been managed in a completely different manner. Earlier in the 20th century, before the two great wars, dozens of enormous concrete cells had been built in the dump, one right after the other in one long row, like a honeycomb. Trash trucks had simply backed up to each cell and dumped everything in, moving on to the next cell once the first one was filled. The mixed trash in the cells was allowed to rot, often for decades, naturally composting until the need arose for a fresh, empty cell. Then the landfill workers would excavate the oldest cells using a backhoe, emptying them out to be refilled in a never-ending trash cycle. The system had worked without a hitch until the 70s, when the new recycling policy had swept the island and the pre-sorting system came into play. Tally was standing by the mustard-colored commercial chipper. He stepped on his cigarette, opened the cruiser's passenger door, and lankily climbed in. "We've got something bad, John. Big bad, I think." John's internal alarm went off because Tally was an old stoner hippie and the most laid-back person he knew, and Tally looked shaken. "What is it?" "Head for the cells." Tally pointed his dirt-encrusted finger. "I'd rather show you." He straightened his neon orange safety vest, trying to regain his composure. "You know how these cells work, right? Fill 'em and spill 'em?" "Yes." "We've been cleaning them out same as usual until last summer. Some UMass grad student came by to shop the Nantucket Mall, took a look around at all of the crap, and realized that the trash in each cell represented what he called a decade's worth of discarded cultural information. Crap, complete crap. Complicated my life because the Commonwealth gave him permission to start excavating the older cells. Now, I don't really mind because it's a stinking job no matter who does it, but still, I need to oversee things since the brainiac grad school boyo can't figure out how to operate a backhoe." Tally patted his vest before remembering where he was. He slid his cigarette pack back into his pocket. "I will say that sometimes what we find in the cells is interesting. The last one we dug out was WW1. Had to be pretty damn careful there. Gave me the yips when we found live naval ordnance in it." He coughed out a laugh. "The crew started excavating this new cell around the middle of May. Timeline looked about right, too. I'd say 1920 to 1930 between the war years. Thought it should be dull enough. Boy, was I ever wrong." John pulled up in front of the stained concrete cells. 3 of the older ones already stood empty. He parked in front of the half-empty 4th cell. A trim, middle-aged woman in a collapsible canvas sun hat and a 30-something man wearing jeans and a denim shirt were waiting. Tally jumped out of the cruiser first. John followed as the landfill odor smothered his sinuses. No wonder Tally smoked like a chimney. You'd have to do something to counteract that acrid, reeking stench. "Detective Jared, how do you do? I'm Dr. Belinda Peabody. This is my assistant, Brad Lamott. Nice to meet you. What have you got?" The state archaeologists were standing over a small, half-rotten steamer trunk. The trunk's convex lid was banded with heavy leather straps. It had protective brass corners and decorative tacks. Back in the day, the trunk had cost someone real money. A name was stenciled across one end in bold black letters: Mrs. Howard Greaves Spencer, Stuyvesant Square, New York. Late 19th century would be my best guess. Brad was so excited he was bouncing off his toes like a greyhound before a race. Once I recognized the name, I suggested to Dr. Peabody that we should notify the police. If this trunk really belonged to Nell Spencer, it might contain important evidence. And I concurred. Dr. Peabody polished her glasses eagerly. This trunk may have had something to do with the baby Alice Spencer kidnapping. The name hit John like a gong. Baby Alice Spencer was the most notorious cold case crime Nantucket had ever known. A ransom kidnapping from the 20s, the toddler had never been recovered. Her kidnappers had never been identified or brought to justice. John noticed that Dr. Peabody and Brad were already wearing gloves. "Lift the lid," he said. Ooh.